Jesus Christ is just amazing. He was God incarnate. He was the Word that became flesh and dwelt among us. And thank God that He's the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. He's still the Lord, our healer. He's still healing today as He did back then. He's still healing today. He is the Lord, our healer. And I thank God that He never changes. He's immutable and changeable. He doesn't have mood swings like us. 1 minute we're happy, 1 minute we're sad, another minute we're angry. God doesn't have mood swings. He's a God of love. And thank God that He's forever faithful. Thank God that His love covers a multitude of sins. And with Him all things are possible. Remember, with God all things are possible. There's nothing too hard for our God. Nothing too hard for Him. Verses 41 to 56. It talks about Jesus raises Jairus' daughter and heals a woman's blood disease. We know that we read about this in the Gospel of Matthew, Mark. We're now in the Gospel of Luke, and it's being mentioned again. We know that Jesus came to the synagogue, and it tells us in verse 41 that a man named Jairus, a ruler of the synagogue, fell down at Jesus' feet and besought Him that He would come into his house, for he had only one daughter, about 12 years old, and she was close to death. But the Word of God tells us that he wept, that as Jesus went, the people thronged Him, or the people they were so close, they actually was so close to Jesus. And thronged Him simply means that He was just engulfed. There were so many people around Him. As I said, everywhere that Jesus went, He drew a crowd. Thronged Him, or they pressed on Him. That's how crowded it was. And it lets us know that a woman having an issue of blood, bear in mind, the man came beseeching Jesus about his young daughter who was at home, close to death, about to die. It lets us know that a woman having an issue of blood for 12 years, we know that she spent all of her savings on physicians, but instead of her getting better, the Word of God lets us know that she grew worse. But she came behind Him in verse 44 and touched the border of His garment, and immediately her issue of blood stanched or stopped. Another gospel lets us know that she said within herself, if I can just but touch the hem of His garment, I know I shall be made whole, because the crowd was so much. She couldn't even get close to Jesus, but she pressed her way through the crowd and said within herself, I know I shall be made whole. She had such confidence, such belief. That is great faith. She didn't believe that she had to physically touch Him to be made whole, but if she can just touch the hem of His garment, she said, I know I shall be made whole. And that's exactly what happened. As we read the Word of God, it lets us know that Jesus, with the crowd pressing on Him, Jesus spoke out, who touched me? The disciples, of course, thought it a little strange. One of them said, Lord, how can you say, who touched you? When there's so many people pressing on you, how can you ask that question? But Jesus knew exactly what He was talking about, because the Word of God says virtue left Him, or that power. He knew, because He was God incarnate. And when He looked around, the Word of God tells us in verse 45. And Jesus said, somebody had touched me, for I perceive that virtue is gone out of me. And when the woman saw that she was not it, she came trembling and falling down before him. She declared unto him before all the people for what cause she had touched him, and how she was healed immediately. And he said unto her, daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace. So she spoke before the crowd and Jesus, because during that time, within that period of time, when you had a problem like that, you were considered unclean. And so this woman, her faith led her to Jesus Christ. And virtue left him. He felt it within him. Her touch was different from the others that was just touching Jesus. Some didn't have a need for anything, I would assume, but the crowd still pressed on him. But this woman had a special need that was vitally important. It was desperation, because she was losing life. Remember, life is in the blood. And she was losing blood. She was slowly dying. Because remember, instead of her getting better, the word of God lets us know that she grew worse. Jesus was her only hope. And he was able to do exceedingly above all she could ever ask or think. And she was made completely whole, because the word of God lets us know immediately she felt in her body the bleeding had stopped. And Jesus responded in such a wonderful way to her. Verse 48, I want to say it again. Daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole. Remember, I've said oftentimes that without faith it's impossible to please God. For they that cometh to him, or he that cometh to him, must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. This woman was so diligent in her seeking a physician, and she knew the answer was in Jesus, because she heard of the wonderful things that he was doing. I'm quite sure she heard about him opening the eyes of the blind, raising the dead, healing the sick of all manner of diseases. So she had such great confidence because of the things that she heard about Jesus. Her faith was already at that place that if I can just but only touch the hem of his garment, I know I shall be made whole. And she indeed was made whole, because Jesus knew what she went through. You see, with her telling her story, it's not that he did not know. He knew it all. He knew about it all. And her story is there in the gospel to let us know that we too, no matter what type of sickness we may have, we by faith can reach out and touch Jesus. We don't have to physically touch the hem of his garment, but just by faith, just believe and receive. Because no matter what sickness we have, God is well able to heal us according to his divine will. He's able to make us completely whole in him, because he never changes. He's still the Lord, our healer. He's still healing today. He's still working miracles, because he never changes. He's the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. So I give God thanks for this woman's story. It tells us, it's a lesson for us. Never give up. Keep trusting in Jesus. It's not that we cannot go to the doctor if we have a sickness. It doesn't take away anything